Next, we have a 10-minute talk by Nina Kong-Surtees on our NFTs art, the past, the present, and the future of art. Please welcome Nina.
First of all, I want to thank NFT.NYC for hosting this event and having me on stage today. Today, I'm so excited to share some of the insights, and I'm going to try to condense a little bit of art history in 10 minutes. So let's get started. So what is art? It's been an age-old question, and that has been baffling people even outside the world and inside the art world, especially when the technology gets in the mix. So when we look at our history as a guide and lesson, artists have challenged and reshaped the idea of beauty, value, and concept throughout the ages. As we observed in the past 3 years, NFTs have radically and rapidly changed the paradigm of art history in the 21st century, as the major auction houses, as well as blue chip art galleries, quickly adapted it and integrating emerging technologies in the art market. So in January 2022, when Wikipedia editors decided omit NFT artists Beeple and Pack from their list of highest artwork ever sold by living artists, sparked a debate among the crypto and art communities. So in equivalent in the art world, this debate is very much like Artists Foundation not validating their artists' artwork because of the questionable authenticity and provenance, or museums not accepting one art piece because of it's not art, so to speak. So Wikipedia's decision raises some ethical and philosophical questions about who gets to decide what art is and what art isn't. So where do we draw the line? Or do we even need one? So in the 19th century, opened a door to modernism, where art was becoming more accessible and democratic as more upper middle class was rising, and art was featured no longer in the context of religious and private sectors. So during this time, more museums began to flourish in Europe and in the US. So a lot of standards that we know of today about art was been set by cultural and academic institutions, and they would determine what's trendy and what's develop the taste what the culture is. And then in addition, they set the standards of what art is by giving a classification, being the painting as the highest of the categories, then followed by sculpture, drawings, and prints, and later photography that became now is the fine art. So the debate of Wikipedia also recalls the advent of photography in the late 19th century when it was first introduced. I want to show you, this is one of the earliest surviving photographs. It was produced in between 1826 and 1827. When the photography was first introduced, it was considered art because it was too mechanical, and because it also removed the artists from the process of making material objects. Walter Benjamin's famous essay, "The Work of Art in the Age of Mechanical Reproduction," published in 1934, comes to mind, and his thought on technology and art still is relevant, very much relevant today, especially when it comes to NFTs. So according to Benjamin, the rapid mass production of technology diminishes the aura or the uniqueness of the art piece because it lacks specific time and space, and it actually removes the original context from the reproduction. So he also predicted that the value as a society shifts when the artwork moves from the private sector, such as religious sites or private homes, to the public sphere, such as museums, and now we have the internet. So photography as a new medium evolved into today's terms of the NFTs, right? Now we have the ability to create scarcity through digital and non-tangible assets that also shifted our interpretations of value and authorship and ownership. So despite these standards and classifications were set by the institution or the central authority, so to speak, in the art world, artists continue to push boundaries and expanding the art as a medium throughout the centuries. I'm going to show you the first example. It's a controversial art that happened in the early 20th century. It's Marcel Duchamp's infamous and influential work called The Fountain. It was exhibited in 1917 when he submitted the ready-made sculpture in the inaugural Society of Independent Artists exhibition in New York City. So Duchamp basically took a brand new urinal and turned it upside down and signed the name Art Mutt, as you see in the photograph, and placed it on a pedestal. So he claimed this to be a sculpture that's made out of something he bought in a hardware store. Although the society didn't reject this art piece, but it was removed. They moved it to somewhere else and within the exhibition because it was so provocative, and it made some statement that goes beyond what traditional art, the definition of traditional art. So the fountain opened up the possibilities in the art where the object is removed from the original context, in this case, the functionality. The artist is responsible for the idea, but physically removing him or herself from the physical making process of art. Nevertheless, the ready-made gave rise to the thought-provoking art movements such we know now, such as pop art, minimalism, and conceptual art in the 1960s and the 70s. And then subsequently, in the early 2000s, there was an exhibition called The Sensation that created outrage and protests across the city that was featured, London, Berlin, and Brooklyn, in New York. This exhibition featured the young British artist from the private collection of the Charles Saatchi. It showcased the variety of themes. It addressed all the themes of identity politics, feminism, cultural diversity, racism, mortality, memory, class, and social criticism. This exhibition created really, it was very controversial, not only for explicit images and graphics, but also it offended a lot of religious authorities. And I think former Mayor Giuliani also threatened remove the federal funding from the Brooklyn Museum by showcasing these kind of artworks at the museum, and also, raised the question about the First Amendment and the freedom of expression. So in this installation photograph, we see Damien Hirst's famous The Shark Tank, and a portrait of Myra. It was disturbing because she was a serial child killer in the UK that created a lot of controversy when he was featured in London. And lastly, you may be familiar with this piece that made headlines, especially in 2019, when art world prankster Maurizio Catalan featured this art piece called The Comedian in 2019 at Art Basel Miami Beach. He made a 3 edition of this piece. 2 were purchased for $120,000 during that time. Of course, the absurdity and the subject and the material raised a lot of question about art and art collecting, and just really continuing the legacy of Duchamp's ready-mades, and is it the idea of the art or is it the object of the art? So what do these controversial events in our history tell us about art, the future of art and NFTs? Though I don't have the crystal ball to predict the future, but the history offers some patterns that help us determine to reshape our future. So as a new generation of artists pushes the boundaries of form of idea of art, and they always have fought through some resistance and criticism, and before the innovation becomes norm or become canonized in the art history. So although blockchain technology alleviates the authentication provenance challenges in the art world, we are still faced with the uphill battles for protecting the artist's rights and the royalties. Just as the beauty is the eye of a beholder, the definition of art and artists are becoming more of a game of semantics. It's more of a wordplay these days, and the lines are blurred. We can't even tell what is art and who gets to decide art these days. But the moral of the story is that history favors the bold and risk takers, as we've seen these examples just now. We're still navigating and redefining the best practice of emerging technology. So how far will the artists go with the technology? Now we're dealing with AIs and bots creating or threaten to replace the artworks and artists, but how far would the artists willing to go with the new medium at hand? Thank you.